welcome to All Steelers Talk, your home for everything Pittsburgh Steelers, presented by allsteelers.com.
What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackmine, joined every Monday and Wednesday by my main man, Steven Thompson. The Pittsburgh Steelers have cut 29 guys, traded 2 of them. It was an absolutely bonkers Tuesday here in the city of Pittsburgh. Make sure to go subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/allsteelerstalk, and find our audio collection anywhere you get your podcasts. Steven, as always, it's a beautiful day in the Berg. It was a rough day for 2,700 guys yesterday in the NFL, but it's part of the business. How you feeling, my friend?
Feeling good. Like you said, yesterday, everything came kind of fast and furious. It was good. We didn't really get a break yesterday, but it was nice to always have something to write about, I guess.
Yeah, it definitely never stopped. One time, from the second I woke up, actually, like I went to the gym. I'm big important days like this. I have a regimen of I wake up at 5 a.m. and go to the gym so that like I could just get it over with, so I don't have to like think about it all day long. Went to the gym. The second I walked in the door after the gym, I was like, all right, news is already happening. John LeGlue got cut. From there, it was everybody and anybody. I was actually in the room when they called Anthony McFarland over to get cut. It sucks. It breaks your heart a little bit, but it's part of the business. I think people are going to go and pick him up along with a bunch of other guys. But on top of that, they made 2 trades, which is super significant. Oh, and before we get into anything, we have to address the microphone. So we know that a couple people realized that our mics are different yesterday. That's a work in progress. We next Monday we'll both have the same mic, so we'll be fine. Won't have to worry about this. This is what happens when Donnie leaves to go take on big boy jobs and we get thrown into the fire. We blame this on Donnie.
Blame it on me. Blame it on the new guy.
We'll blame it on you and Donnie. And maybe a little bit of Derek and me. We'll just blame it on anybody. All right. Anyways, the Pittsburgh Steelers made 2 trades. Malik Reid out of Denver and Jesse Davis out of Minnesota. Really never played a game for Minnesota. Was signed in March, lasted 6 months. Let's start with Malik Reid. Traded a 6th round pick for Malik Reid and a 7th. So basically said, hey, can we have an outside linebacker? In Denver said, yeah, here's one that started 13 games and had 8 sacks last season. And we were like, oh, okay, cool. Thank you. Great move for the Pittsburgh Steelers, in my opinion. When you saw the move coming, what'd you feel? What'd you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like you said, they basically got him for free. He is an extremely productive linebacker. He's young. He fills a position in need. Like a complete home run for Omar Khan and the Pittsburgh front office. Yeah, no complaints at all. Like, you got a really productive young linebacker for nothing.
For literally nothing. And I got a phone call. So my dad is like a diehard Denver Broncos fan. And I got a phone call yesterday. And I pick up the phone. And I was like, yo, what's going on? I know what this is about already. And he's like, I can't believe you guys just did that. Malik Reid is a stud. He's going to be great off the bench. Don't start him. I'm like, well, he's not going to start. He might start week 1 if Alex Highsmith isn't healthy. But I would even expect Derek Tushka to still start if Highsmith isn't ready, and then let Malik Reid just kind of fill in like after a couple of reps to make sure. I mean, you don't want to start a guy after a week here. They did that with Monty Adams last year. It didn't work out very well. Mm-hmm. A guy, I mean, he had nothing but rave reviews. He was like, this guy, you steal for a 6th rounder. You can't believe he went undrafted. Denver has way too many outside linebackers. They should have got rid of him. I was like, all right, well, great move, I guess.
Off your hands.
Yeah. It was a great move for the Pittsburgh Steelers. No complaints. Fills exactly what they need, I believe. We talked all summer about how Derek Tushka, I mean, at the end of it, we were trying to make excuses for Hamika Rashid about how it's like, oh, well, he's taking reps with the ones. He did nothing in the preseason, but he's taking reps with the ones, and that should be enough. He should be the answer. And it wasn't. I think we both kind of knew that. Like in our head, we were just like, this is another Taco Charlton type situation.
Yeah, seemed a little forced.
Exactly. I think overall this has got to be a win for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Do you think he plays an immediate role week 1? You think it's a slow development? What do you see out of this?
Yeah, I'd have to imagine it's a slower burn. Like you said, just bringing a guy in this late in the preseason probably means that he has to get up to speed, and we'll give him a litut bit of grace and give him some time to get back into the swing of things with the Steelers and just learn the system and all that. It does change if Alex Highsmith's not good to go. Maybe they rely on him a little bit more, but yeah, I would have to imagine it'd be a slow burn.
Yeah, I think that he walks in here. Like I said, I don't think Alex Highsmith is going to start week 1 because I don't know what the update on that rib injury is. If he doesn't, I would say Derek Tushka starts just because he understands the defense. And then from there, you let Malik Reid just kind of ride and you let him play that third outside linebacker. I mean, if you're bringing 8 sacks in, people are trying to downplay 8 sacks I saw yesterday. I mean, Bud Dupree was $12.5 million franchise tagged for 8 sacks in a season. Malik Reid coming in here with a tender that probably costs about $2.5 million is, I mean, chef's kiss. Absolutely phenomenal. Right. Phenomenal work by Omar Khan. Then he came back, grabbed Jesse Davis, and people for a quick second it took no time at all. And I have so much respect for Steelers Nation on Twitter because it took literally 5 minutes for people to be like, yo, this is awesome. And then realize like, yo, this is terrible. I can't believe they did this. Gave up a conditional 7th rounder, which isn't that bad. It is what it is. Jesse Davis comes in here very, very deceiving. 72 starts, over 700 snaps, played guard and tackle all on the right side. You look at his numbers, not great at all.
Right. You love the versatility, you love the experience, but you would rather the experience be good experience. It is really hard to find a offensive lineman that is, quite frankly, worse than just about everyone that the Steelers have, at least everyone that the Steelers could conceive of playing this year on the offensive line. But Omar Khan managed to find him. So, yeah, this one was a little bit of a head scratcher, I guess. I guess they didn't, take much to get him, but just like, I don't know. Like you said, on the surface, everyone thought, linebacker or offensive line upgrade, and then you dig not even very deep. You scratch the surface, and you can see immediately why this guy was so easy to get.
Yeah,
he didn't do much in Minnesota.
I think the thing is you released Joe Haeg for him, which, I mean, Joe Haeg isn't great, but at one point this summer, you looked at defensive lineman Pittsburgh has. Like, this could be a real thought. Got rid of him, which I don't know. I don't feel great about that one. To bring in this guy who this is the words I've gotten about Jesse Davis. Solely responsible for Tua Tagovailoa's broken ribs. Not great. Incredible guy, terrible offensive lineman. Not what you want to hear. And to bring him in, and he's got barely any left tackle experience, which means that he's just here to replace Chooks. And I mean, Chooks doesn't need a replacement. Chooks could play the right side fine. He's probably the best offensive lineman that they have going into week 1. I mean, very questionable. And it would have been fine if it was just adding to the mix here, but to bring him in and replace Joe Haeg, I thought Joe Haeg was fine. I didn't have any issues with Joe Haeg.
Yeah. That's the weirdest thing for me is that they didn't exactly need this guy, I guess. Like it just didn't make sense to me in that way. Like if you're going to go out and get an offensive lineman, why would you ditch someone that you relatively like, that you don't, that hasn't been a complete disaster for you, to get someone who it's hard you can't even say he has potential, and you can't even say, I feel like you can't even just say like change of scenery or something like that. It just doesn't, it's really hard to imagine this really working out in a meaningful way.
The change of scenery was Miami to Minnesota, which went from a dumpster fire to can't even keep him on the roster. So now you're sending them to Pittsburgh and you're thinking that's going to make it better. And on top of that, like, Joe Haeg is one name to get released, but John LeGlue getting released, that was even more shocking, I believe, because LeGlue could play across the entire offensive line. He was taking emergency long snapper reps during training camp. Like, I just thought that he was the perfect fit for an offensive line that had zero answers. And instead, your answer is Jesse Davis, who just isn't good. It was a very, very, very questionable. But that's a good transition, I think, into the cuts, because Leglue, I believe, is one of the more surprising cuts that happened yesterday. There was a couple other ones. Kendrick Green made the team. I don't know if you saw, I tweeted out last night. It was like, God is great or something, or I love God or something. And you're just like, yeah, man, you're a third round pick. You shouldn't be tweeting that out. You know, like you shouldn't be like, man, I barely made it on here. Good. Yeah. Shout out to Jesus. That shouldn't be it, I feel.
Yeah. But a former third round pick thanking God that he made the roster and not that, that's a little concerning. You would hope that he would be appreciative of, or, credit it to his own play. But he really didn't have any, like, he couldn't hang his hat on what he did on the field. So shout out to God for helping Kendrick Green make the roster. Yeah, no, that was weird too. I just don't think Kendrick Green, and like you said, the other weird one, Buddy Johnson, another like, kind of not a similar situation. Buddy Johnson has been, I think, much more productive than Kendrick Green has, but Buddy Johnson gets cut while Kendrick Green still, like, couple draft picks from a few years ago. Buddy Johnson was a 4th round pick. Kendrick Green was a 3rd round pick. Like, how are these situations different? Why is Buddy Johnson, who's actually shown you something on the field, why is he the one that gets cut while Kendrick Green kind of gets a second shot at this when he hasn't really shown you anything?
I think that was the craziest part. Like, Buddy Johnson, I expected to not make the team, because, I mean, we both saw it. And you were the first one to point it out to me during the first preseason game that, like, he didn't even know where he was supposed to be on the field and against the third team. And that was concerning. On top of that, Mark Robinson looked really good. But you look at their status, and, like, Kendrick Green, the only reason that Kendrick Green made this team is because he's a 3rd round pick a year ago, right? Like, that's got to be the only. Politics had to play the only role in him making the 53-man roster. You're telling me that Buddy Johnson's 4th round status wasn't enough, but Kendrick Green's was, and Kendrick Green was significantly worse. Like, I'm not saying that Buddy Johnson was good, because he was also terrible, but Kendrick Green was the worst player on the field every time he was on the field. And that, I mean, it just doesn't, like, the politics there doesn't add up. And just to address this, and I'm going to get to the Jaylen Warren comment here too, because I will acknowledge that, but Buddy looked real bad. And then Mark Robinson took Buddy's spot. I agree that Mark Robinson took Buddy's spot, and he definitely did. But the Pittsburgh Steelers usually keep 6 inside linebackers. This year, I mean, right now they have 4. Marcus Allen's going to come back once DeMonte KZ is placed on IR. So that's only 5. So it was like, oh, okay, well, Buddy really stinks, and we're not going to give him time to develop. But Kendrick Green, we're going to stick around because there's no way he's going to pass through waivers. That didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, that was a real head scratcher. One of the bigger ones of the day.
Yeah, definitely one of the bigger ones of the day. We'll get into VYBR8. Trying to talk a lot of smack here about Jaylen Warren. Look, and I remember months ago when you said Jaylen wouldn't make this team. So just to add some context there that I don't think is being addressed. And I'll be the first one to admit that in rookie minicamp, I didn't think Jaylen Warren was going to make this team because, like I said, during minicamp, nobody showed flashes. And I, along with the Pittsburgh Steelers, believed that Mateo Durant was the better running back. That's why they gave Mateo Durant a $90,000 signing bonus to join this team. You saw Jaylen Warren take over. I thought he definitely earned his spot. I mean, I would love to see him as the number 2 running back in Pittsburgh this season. I think that he's done enough to do that. Back in June, late May, I had no belief that anybody was beating out Anthony McFarland or Benny Snell. And to be totally honest, and this is a great transition here, is I still to this day do not believe that Anthony McFarland should have been the one that got cut. And truthfully, I don't believe Benny Snell should have been either. I think it should have been Derek Watt. And it's very mind-blowing that they kept a fullback while they tried to make Connor Hayward a fullback, and neither of them are actually going to play fullback this season.
Yeah, I think you and I both thought when we saw Connor Hayward line up at fullback in that final preseason game, that kind of met the end of the line for Derek Watt. Just because they seem to have a plan to replace him. They're playing Derek Watt a relatively large amount for a fullback, and for a fullback who didn't do a whole lot for them. And also, particularly because the Steelers don't really use a fullback that much. But yeah, no, I mean, I think no one really knew what to expect from Jaylen Warren coming into when he got signed, and he immediately blew up. Like it was obvious from, I think, the moment he stepped on the field that he was better than Jaylen Warren, or not Jaylen Warren. He is Jaylen Warren, better than Mateo Durant. Like he could just do so much more. And then he started adding some plays on special teams. He started, showing that he was a good blocker too. So yeah, I think, it's not complete. It wasn't completely unreasonable to think when Jaylen Warren was signed that he had an uphill battle to making the roster. But I don't think anyone would argue right now that he is more than earned a shot at those second team reps.
Oh yeah, he definitely should. And to touch on this one, maybe Watt because of TJ. I truthfully, and like, this is weird because it's the NFL. I mean, I think that's exactly why. I think TJ Watt's brother is here in Pittsburgh until his contract runs out, which is after this season. It was dead money though, so it didn't really matter. And instead of keeping a guy that at the beginning of the summer, I mean, think about Anthony McFarland's role. When we showed up at training camp, Anthony McFarland was playing slot out wide. He was running with the first teams. Like, he had a significant role in this offense. And then Jaylen Warren comes in here, starts balling out. And instead of removing somebody, because Derek Watt hasn't played in 2 months. So instead of removing somebody from the offense that has zero impact on this team, you decided to remove Anthony McFarland that you tried to have a significant role on this team. And truthfully, I thought he looked good. It didn't make sense to me. I'm still looking back at it. It doesn't make sense. Even if they cut Benny Snell, and I think Benny Snell is a very valuable football player, it would have made more sense than to get rid of the guy that you saw potential in, and instead were just like, nah, never mind, man. We're good.
Yeah, Anthony McFarland averaged 5.7 yards per carry this preseason. Like, he showed you something. Derek Watt did not. I don't understand why. Yeah,
no, it doesn't make any sense. Derek Watt, and like you have the special teams argument of, oh, Derek Watt's very good at special teams. Every single player on the Pittsburgh Steelers this season is good at special teams. Like, they've everybody. Benny Snell, Miles Boykin. There's a million of guys out there that it just doesn't make sense that it's got to be the last name.
Yeah, that was our go-to every time we were trying to find a reason why someone could stay on the roster. We were like, oh, well, they can play special teams, can't they?
They could play special teams. And but I talked to everybody at the end, and everybody's like, oh man, I'm so good at special teams. And I was like, well, it looks like you're making the roster, man. I don't have a reason for you not to make the roster. Yeah. Jaylen Warren, do you expect that to stay the same? You think week 1, Jaylen Warren's still going to be the running back 2? And I think a bigger question, do you expect a running back 2 to actually contribute this season?
That is a good question. I don't think so. I think Benny Snell has a pretty tight grip on that running back 2 spot. I don't know. I think I think they just like Benny Snell. I think they trust Benny Snell a little bit more than they trust Jaylen Warren right now. That's not to say that Jaylen can't get up to that RB2 spot, but I think it would take some time before the Steelers can really feel comfortable like settling in on him at that spot and demoting Benny, I guess.
So I don't think that the Steelers utilize a running back 2 at all this season, just like they've done for the last 15 years. But I think that you're going to see Jaylen Warren in times where he actually runs the football, and then you'll see Benny Snell in areas where you're like looking for more pass protection, that kind of thing. Because like we said time and time again, like the problem with Benny Snell is that Najee Harris can do everything he can do, and he could do it better. So there's not really a point of putting Benny Snell out there. But Benny Snell is very good at pass protection. He's super reliable in that, actually. I think that in those situations where you want those two running backs and you know you're going to throw the football, you'll put Najee and you'll put Benny out there, and then you'll work those two. But I could see Jaylen Warren getting a couple of snaps early in the season if he makes the most of them. I mean, you never know. You never know. But behind this offensive line, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. All right. Wide receivers, they kept 7 of them. I think we were both surprised because we talked all summer about who was going to make the team. Tyler Vaughn's, I think, surprised a couple of people because he broke out there at the end. My thoughts on Tyler Vaughn's were he did, and I think he earned a roster spot somewhere, but I knew the whole time it wasn't going to be in Pittsburgh because they were looking for a guy that deep in the roster. Like Steven Sims has punt return ability, so just in case Calvin Austin has to miss some time, he's the backup punt returner. Tyler Vaughn's had the same ability, but not as good as Steven Sims, so that kind of gave Sims the upper hand. And then they're both making plays. And Miles Boykin you keep because he's the most consistent guy of the group, and he's a great gunner, and you just got rid of Justin Lane, so he's going to replace Justin Lane on special teams, so you have to keep him. I think that's where Tyler Vaughn's went wrong, but I do think Tyler Vaughn's, I think he does get picked up somewhere. I would be very surprised if he doesn't.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this was less about what Tyler Vaughn's didn't do and more about what everyone else around him did. Like you said, Vaughn's made a bunch of plays, but just there were other guys making a lot of plays in front of him. So you had to cut someone, and he was the odd man out, you know. And I think the fact that they did keep 7 receivers and Vaughn still couldn't crack that top 7, I think that kind of tells you what you need to know.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, worst case scenario for Tyler Vaughn, he's back on the practice squad, and like you could get called up at any time. But I think somebody somewhere is going to be like, oh, we need a wide receiver. This guy's been balling out, especially in the fourth quarter. Like at 9 o'clock rolls around, Tyler Vaughn's is the best wide receiver on a football field. And I think that somebody somewhere is going to be like, okay, well, we'll give him a shot. You know, he might not make the team, but we'll give him a shot. But I could see him, Cody White. I don't remember who, maybe Tyler Snead coming back to the practice squad. But it doesn't really, it more surprised me that Steven Sims and Miles Boykin made this team, which leads you here. What players of the 53-man could be moved to injured reserve? Do you expect Calvin Austin to be moved to the IR? I think a week ago we were talking about that, but I haven't heard anything since.
Yeah, I think the injury seemed much more serious a while ago than it does now. You obviously at practice yesterday. I don't know what you saw, but you know, Austin's been out there out of his boot in a helmet along the sidelines. So, and you know, hearing from what I've heard from Coach Tomlin, they seem to be much more optimistic about him coming back than I guess we all kind of thought without you know that direct knowledge. So yeah, I think I could see Calvin Austin going on the IR, but I think they'd like to avoid that if they can, because he seems to be much closer than.
I think a week ago we were looking at it like he's probably going to miss another 4 weeks. I think at this point it might be like 2 when they don't want to really. I mean, Calvin Austin is a guy you don't want on IR if he doesn't have to be on IR.
Yeah.
The 7 wide receivers might be a sign though. Like, okay, well, we are planning on Calvin not being here for a little while, and we have to be prepared for that. And then when he comes back off IR, the question there would be, who do you bring back? Because Sims is a 4th-year guy, so he wouldn't even have to pass through waivers. So you would have been able to do that. So maybe they are just looking for 7 wide receivers, which makes almost no sense to me. Like, what are you going to do with 7 wide receivers when your top 4 are Deontay Johnson, who should never come off the field, Chase Claypool, who should come off the field a little bit, but not much, George Pickens, who should never come off the field, and Calvin Austin, who, again, should never come off the field. Like, that just, where you're not putting anybody else out there. You're not taking Najee off the field. So,
Yeah, I think that's where, if you wanted to keep, I think even if Boykin was your sixth guy, I think you're onto something there with keeping Steven Sims and having him kind of be the fill in for Calvin Austin. Obviously he's not going to fill right in for Calvin Austin, but he fits more of the mold of what Calvin Austin would do, as opposed to Boykin or Cody White or any of the other guys that can keep.
Yeah. Cody White, tough day for Sheldon White, huh?
Yeah,
tough day for Pops up there in the front office to be like, hey man, sorry, you're gone. He will be back though on the practice squad. I guarantee you that one. Any theories on why Mike Tomlin refuses to name a quarterback? I even tried to get around it. For everybody who watched the press conference yesterday, I was the one that was like, how close is this battle? And he was like, well, I already know the winner and I'm just not going to tell you because we're going to feed the monster. And then Mitch Trubisky said that Tomlin hasn't told him either. So 2 questions. Do you believe Mitch Trubisky that Mike Tomlin has not informed them? And do you think that this really does benefit them that nobody knows who the starting quarterback is a week from week 1?
Well, the thing is, I think everyone knows who it is. Whether Mike Tomlin says it or not, one guy has been taking the vast majority of first team reps. One guy has started every preseason game. There's one guy. It's Mitch Trubisky, whether or not Mike Tomlin says it. And I think the competition has already been won. I think everyone in the Steelers locker room could probably tell that it's already been won. So to that end, I don't really see the advantage of keeping it a secret. I don't know why you would kind of dangle this in front of Mitch like this and not kind of give him, I think Mitch has earned it. I think Mitch has earned the starting job. So I don't know why you would withhold it from him like this. It seems a little, I guess you could call it disrespectful. Maybe that's too strong of a word, but it's just odd. And I don't know why you wouldn't just give this guy the confidence that he needs. And when you're less than 2 weeks away from your first game of the season, it's real odd to me. I didn't really understand.
Do you think that, and maybe I'm just being nuts because, I do this sometimes. Do you think that Kenny won the job and that he just isn't ready to say, or do you think that it's much closer than he wants to say and he's just not willing to because it's Mike Tomlin, he's not willing to let us know that? Do you think that possibly?
Yeah, I think that's more likely. I think Mike Tomlin just likes to mess with everyone. I think because I saw someone say the other day, he's having fun with it. He is enjoying kind of dangling this in front of the media and the fans to a certain extent too. But I think he knows who his guy is. It's just, maybe he does want to keep the Bengals guessing, but how much do you think the Bengals are actually guessing?
Exactly. That goes all against your grayless name faces or gray nameless gray faces theory in Pittsburgh of we don't even care about the other guys. We're just focused on ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, you're apparently you're not because you're not feeding the beast. You don't want to feed the beast. I think that I would be very surprised if Kenny Pickett is the starter week 1, but it wouldn't surprise me in oh my gosh, I didn't see this coming. It would just surprise me. And I really thought that Mitch won the job, and not because he did anything special, but just because he didn't do anything wrong. But and on top of that, you don't want to put Kenny back there behind that offensive line because it's bad and it's not getting any better. And at that point, let Mitch get just beat up. It doesn't sound good. You don't want to do that to anybody, but you don't want to do that to Kenny Pickett and say, okay, man, go run for your life all the time against really good defensive teams, especially in the AFC North, and have fun. Welcome to the NFL. I hope it's a blast.
Yeah. And I think also just from a literal, you want to win games perspective, I trust Mitch Trubisky to handle that pressure a lot more than I do any rookie.
Any rookie. Rookies don't win Super Bowls. It's plain and simple. Rookie quarterbacks don't win Super Bowls. If they did, and maybe Kenny would be the guy that broke it, I don't know, but rookie quarterbacks historically do not win Super Bowls, and you don't want to do that. If you're still hunting for a Super Bowl, and this team is built where if they had an offensive line, they'd be very good, a very good team, but you're not built for that right now. Would you? Here's a trade right here, and just so everybody's clear, they would not trade Mitch Trubisky. They're not trading any of the quarterbacks. But hypothetically, would you take a second-round pick for Mitch and start Kenny and Rudolph as your backup? My answer is an easy yes. Easy yes.
Yeah, second-round pick is a pretty good. That's, I think, a little bit too valuable to give up, especially when you have, I think we can all agree, someone who you think is pretty capable. Like I said, you wouldn't want to throw Kenny back there behind that offensive line. But yeah, I guess if you could get a second round pick back for it, you kind of have to do that.
You got to pull the trigger.
But I can't say I would feel real good about it, just because
No.
I think the season is not like they don't need to throw away this season. Like, this is a season where they can do something, where they can make some noise. So I wouldn't love like just throwing Pickett right into the fire right away. I think that creates some unreasonable expectations for him. I think it puts too much pressure on him. And you don't want to like kill his confidence and his body in his first year in the NFL.
Yep. It's not Madden. You're not playing Madden. You're playing for a Super Bowl. You know, you can't fast forward. You got to really deal with this season. And Mike Tomlin's not looking to lose. He's never been looking to lose. So they would never do it. But if somebody called him, was like, here's a second round pick for Mitch Trubisky, you're like, well, okay. You want him today or tomorrow? Yesterday? We could get it. We could get him there in an hour, really. Yeah. Easy. Last one here. I think we touched on pretty much everything we got to touch this too. No, he would not. First off, Mitch Trubisky is more athletic than anybody realizes. He's probably more athletic than Kenny Pickett. And you cannot, like, the theory of a bad offensive line is not your quarterback should be running around trying to get rid of the ball. Now, I will give you that Kenny works best outside the pocket, but that's not what you want your quarterback to be doing. Nobody's like, oh man, just, go avoid all the guys and then throw the football. Like, that's not a successful, that's not the solution to a bad offensive line.
Kenny's not athletic enough to play 4-on-1 or whatever, or 7-on-11. Like, he's not good enough to do that.
No, nobody is. You're not like nobody is. You're not Lamar Jackson, and even Lamar Jackson's line's pretty good. So, nope, you can't. You just nope. It's nope. All right, so this is where we'll end here because it does tie into the Alex Leatherwood comment. What would you do first to reinvent the offensive line? Where would you start? So I think Alex Leatherwood is a good place to start. Would you go get a guy who started 17 games for the Raiders last year, sucked way worse in the preseason this year, but as a first-round pick a year ago, if you had the opportunity to grab him on waivers?
Yeah, I think you would. I think that makes much more sense than going out and getting Jesse Davis. Like, at the very least, you can say change of scenery. He's 1 year out of the draft. Like, there's a lot of potential there. So I don't think that's a bad move at all. Like, definitely, especially if he's just on waiver, go get him. Why not? Like, you can't. And again, it all comes back to the fact that you're starting from such a low place with this offensive line that it is hard to go any lower. So yeah, why not? Like, take a chance.
I agree. I think that I think the Steelers screwed up because they used their waiver place. They used their waiver claim to move them down to the bottom of the list for Elijah Riley, who had no business being here whatsoever. And now they're kind of like fighting from the bottom to hope that guys like Leatherwood fall. I think Leatherwood would be a great addition. And on top of that, I think he would have potential at guard. I remember people talking during his draft process about, he might be able to play guard. And like, I think if he's not going to tackle, move him inside and see what happens, because Kevin Dotson and Kendrick Green are not the answer. Dan Moore Jr. is not the answer. So you might as well have options there. And I agree with you. Like if you're starting at rock bottom and somebody's like, well, here's a first round pick a year ago. Well, it's better than the third and fourth round pick that you have working right now a year ago. So, politics wise, go get him. And quality wise, I don't know how good he is, but he's an option. Andre Dillard is another name that's been tossed out here. I think that's a good guard option for them. There's a couple guys that were cut in like the first round that I think could be out there for them. But I think right now it's go big or go home. And if Alex Leatherwood is the start, go get him. Easy. Easy. I also agree with this one. Any player that has experience in Pat Meyer's system will get a phone call. I agree with that one. I think that if your offensive line coach has faith in a guy that's on the open market, you see what's up. But I think Alex Leatherwood, just to answer this one before we head out here, position overall, just you got to go. I think Alex Leatherwood's just the top of the list, no matter what position ever. And Eric Fisher is out there. So, and that's an option. The problem with Eric Fisher is he's going to be worth a lot of money. He's a good name. Don't get me wrong, but, and Derek broke this down the other day, like him and Dan Moore kind of struggle in the same areas from times. And that might be iffy. And on top of that, if you're looking to build an offensive line, Alex Leatherwood's a better option than a 31-year-old Eric Fisher that is just looking for a boatload of money. So, I wouldn't be upset about either of them. I think either of them are a good signing and a major upgrade. But if I had to pick, I'm going Alex Leatherwood because I'll take that chance before I go get a veteran that's just out there. But all right, we're heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk, and check out our audio collection anywhere you get your podcast. And as always, be a friend to tell a friend to go use our promo code at manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping. I'll be back on Friday with Derek. Enjoy your week. Peace.